Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Big Money Talks with me, Big Money Drew Nicholas. I have not put out a Big Money Talks for a few weeks. I've just had some other outside wrestling obligations and haven't been able to sit down and hit record. And honestly, I wasn't planning on doing one this week either, but I was inspired by watching The Distraction on Monday with Jeremy Lambert and Joe Holbert on the Fightful Gaming Twitch. And, they talked about wrestling television and how it's viewed. And I think it was a very great discussion. You should go check it out. Fightful Gaming on Twitch. Um, Basically, it's something that I've been wanting to talk about for a little while too, and I'm glad that they kind of jump started it for me, made me think more. And I don't really like, so I feel like that's just what I want to talk about today. Um, Wrestling is wrestling, it's good sometimes, it's not good other times. Raw has not been good. It was not good on Monday. Not good. Um, Yeah, so it's like, why bother with that stuff? We don't have to bother with that stuff. We're going to talk about, we're just going to have a talk about wrestling viewership because it's declined. And a lot of what Jeremy and Joe were talking about on The Distraction was that it's still being presented in a sports presentation. And like a great also another thing brought up, Bad Bunny and Logan Paul now coming in on Friday. um you know is television wrestling's future? Right now it seems like it's not, because it doesn't seem to matter what you do on wrestling television. You'll get an uptick, but it'll never stay there. you know it goes up like, you know maybe the first, I don't know what the first couple of weeks were of Bad Bunny, but if Bad Bunny caused an uptick in Raw's ratings, where is it now? 1.7 last Monday, one of the lower ones of the year, if not the lowest of this year. So it just seems like wrestling is not a television style watch anymore, because while, I mean, 1.7 million people watching something is pretty, you know that's a nice substantial amount of people. um it's just not like it's not how people want to watch wrestling anymore, I think. And um now Peacock is in the deal with WWE, and now all the WWE network stuff is on there for the US right now. Um, and something that I would have added to Jeremy and Joe's conversation if I was talking to them was, like, as YouTube, as YouTube now is more where people go to watch the clips of what's going on as a binge style way of watching wrestling. What was good with the WWE network was that they were time stamping things. So you could just go right to a certain part of Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-view, whatever it was that you were watching, WCW, and you could see on the bottom, okay, here's, Hogan and NWO segment at the hour mark of Nitro. Here is Rey Mysterio versus, I don't know, whomever, at the second hour, you know. You could see those timestamps, and just right now, what it appears is that that's not going to be what they do on Peacock, and that's worrisome because people can't just sit down and watch wrestling like the way that it used to be watched anymore. It seems there are people like 1.7 for Raw, around 2 million for SmackDown. AEW does around 750 to 800. NXT does like 650 to 700. And what'll be interesting about that too is now that the Wednesday Night Wars are coming to an end, what it's going to look like with NXT on Tuesdays and Dynamite on Wednesdays, what the viewership will be of that going forward, as they just don't compete with each other anymore. So that'll be really interesting to see. But it's just not working out, I think, as nicely. And then the other part too, which is what they mentioned under distraction, is just the amount of content right now. You've got, just for WWE alone, you've got WWE's Raw on Monday, you have Main Event, if you watch Main Event, you have NXT, you have NXT UK, you have SmackDown, you have 205 Live, and you have a pay-per-view, once a month or something, 2 times a month. So that's up to, in a week, if it's a pay-per-view week, that's 8 shows for one company alone. And that's just counting WWE. AEW has Dark Elevation on Monday, regular Dark on Tuesday, Dynamite on Wednesday. That's 3 shows, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. There's MLW, there's Ring of Honor, there's Impact, there's New Japan, there's, well, I don't know if New Japan isn't exactly a weekly show, I don't believe, but, there's just so much wrestling right now, so much, and it's tough to keep up with, and, there are people out there whose job it is to really just keep up with what's going on every show. More power to them, really. And for me, as you know, I just cover wrestling for cage-side seats. I just cover Raw, SmackDown, and the pay-per-view. If I just had to do one more show, it would probably be just overwhelming for me, because as is, I'm covering nearly about, on a pay-per-view week, 10 hours. And now, WrestleMania is coming up next weekend. That's a 2-day event. So, it's a lot. It's a lot of content. And I just don't know where it's going to be. Like, once the Peacock deal, they were mentioning, Jeremy and Jill were mentioning of the distraction, like the Peacock deal, when the Peacock deal is up, does WWE just be like, or does Peacock rather just go to WWE? Like, hey, we want majority stake, and we're going to put your shows on streaming service on Peacock instead of on USA. And, I just don't know what the Fox deal is going to be like after this year, because something that's just kind of fishy for me is, like, how is Fox okay with their programming with SmackDown being shown on Peacock, an NBC product? That just is a little odd for me. I don't know why Fox would be okay with that, but you know, it's just, honestly, if I wasn't covering wrestling, I probably wouldn't be watching it. At least, well, with Raw. I think maybe I would watch SmackDown live, but I definitely wouldn't be watching Raw live because Raw sucks. Flat out. You know it. If you saw my recap on Monday on Cage Side Seats, I pretty much just mocked the show. I've never felt like I had to do that before. Or no, not even that I had to, but I've never felt like I even wanted to do that before. I just graded the whole show as if it were a report card, like they did with the Shane and Braun Strowman segment. I've never done something like that before. I've never felt the need to do something like that before. But because the show was so bad, with like 2 good segments and a good match in a 3-hour time span, think about that. A 3-hour time span. And you only put 2 good, decent, not even great segments on television and a good wrestling match in 3 hours. That's really bad. That makes me not want to watch Raw. And, you know, I watch it because I cover it, but I would just probably YouTube clip it, honestly. And I think like that's like the wave of the future. WWE, and I don't even think this is just a WWE thing. I think that this is a wrestling in general thing. I was talking with some of the people, again, my coworkers on Cage Side Seats, a couple of days ago about like weekly TV, and I had mentioned that I feel like the UFC model or the progress model of non-weekly television shows. I would say progress right now because because of wrestling. UFC is not wrestling. You know, everything's fake at the end of the day. Like the progress model of like one show every 3 weeks or something like that, 2 or 3 weeks or a month. I really don't. I don't watch Progress anymore, and I can't watch Progress anymore now because I don't have a network. But I'm not watching anymore. Other things. But just like having it that way, I think would make it more cool, more important again, because there's just so much oversaturation of wrestling. And I think that just now, weekly episodic television isn't the way to go with wrestling anymore. And we'll see, like what happens in a couple of years when the Fox deal and the Peacock deal are up, what WWE is going to do if they get extended for TV with both, or SmackDown ends up going to Peacock, to NBC or USA Network. I just don't know. And it's not like fun to sit here and watch bad wrestling because WWE just doesn't know how to do it right anymore, because they're really just catering to one person. There's one person. He's all the way up at the top. He's a 75-year-old man, and he puts out what he thinks is good for himself. That's just how it is. You can't deny that. Look at his shows. You can't deny that. It's just the way that it is. AEW does better. They do better. They really do. But they have issues too. They have issues. You know, I watched Dynamite last night, and it was a good show, you know, but there's certain things about AEW that bother me, just like with Raw and SmackDown sometimes. I don't need long matches, like nearly 20-minute matches, multiple times. Like, you know, everybody wants to see Christian come back. That's great. And you know what? He did pretty well for his first match, singles match back in like 6 or 7 years. But nearly 20 minutes to start the show, I just wasn't into that really that much. It was, he did really good. Frankie Kazarian, I think, did really good, and Christian Cage, but I don't need it to be that long. Give me a little sprint, a little, you know, slow down, commercial break, come back, boom, you know, little sprint again, some false finishes, and that's it. Call it a day. Didn't need to be more than 10, 11 minutes. That was like 18, almost 19 minutes. That was a long time. I just don't need it. I don't need the, you know, a lot of people talk about on Twitter, the 9:30 women's match. You know, it's just not. They could have cut the Christian Kazarian match down 8, 9 minutes and put a women's match afterwards. 2 women's matches on the show. Don't see that very often. It could have had, you know, more storylines. I wasn't watching it live, so I was like going through. I started at about like 9:05, but I didn't see any Hangman Dark Order stuff. But they gave all this time to QT Marshall and his new faction, because everybody's got a faction in AEW. Some of them are good. Most of them are good, really. You know, there's, well, I mean, there's also like trios. I don't know if you call them factions, like Death Triangle. I don't know if I would call them a faction or a trio. I think a trio would make more sense. But, you know, it's just like, you got Pinnacle, Inner Circle, like the Nightmare Family stuff. You know, 2 Nightmare Families. You know, there's Nightmare Family Black and Nightmare Family Red, if you know what I mean. It's just like, there's a lot of groups of people, and why are we dedicating a feud that's been on Dark and BTE and like Sammy's vlogs? Oh, why are we dedicating like a chunk of time on Dynamite for that? People, this is like one of the biggest things that they talk about, criticism of AEW. People don't watch Dark a lot. People don't watch BTE. It's just put on a wrestling show, a television show, where the things that are happening on Dynamite week to week are carried through, and there's storyline progression there, and you're not making people go and watch Dark Elevation and Dark and BTE. It's like, Why are you doing that? And a lot of people feel, and I kind of feel the same way, is that because AEW, while it is a good show, it really is, it's not trying to be mainstream. Yeah, you got, Shaq and Cody's on some TNT shows, and now there's going to be the Cody Brandy reality show on TNT. It's just not, I don't think it's just going to do that much at the end of the day. Good for them for having the show, but at the end of the day, is it going to bring that many more eyes to AEW that weren't there already? I don't think so. Uh, and I feel bad saying like all these negative things about both companies, but there's just so much stuff that has to be done to improve this. And I think that the biggest thing that nobody realizes is that wrestling isn't mainstream anymore. People are not, uh, Jeremy, under distraction, I think he said, people aren't tuning in the week after Logan Paul is on the show to find out what's going on the show. There may be a bump in viewership for SmackDown tomorrow because Logan Paul is on the show, and Logan Paul fans are watching to see what he does on the show. But what about SmackDown the next week? It's the go home show for WrestleMania, so maybe it'll have an uptick. But will that be the Logan Paul uptick? And if so, what will the ratings look like 2-3 weeks from then? Because there's the go home for WrestleMania probably will have the uptick. The after WrestleMania will have an uptick just for the fallout of WrestleMania. But then what about the week after? What happens then? We already saw with Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny being on the show practically every week hasn't kept a steady, ratings incline. It just hasn't. So, and Bad Bunny is an internationally known superstar, a real superstar, not a wrestling superstar, a real superstar. And Raw's doing 1.7. He was on the Grammys. He's won awards. Raw's doing 1.7. Logan Paul's going to be on tomorrow. We'll see probably a little bit of an uptick. But what about after that? After the WrestleMania fallout shows of Raw and SmackDown? I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but it's something that's I think a good topic of conversation, and that's why I really appreciated Jimmy and Joe talking about this, because it's something that I've talked about with people on Twitter, my coworkers, the Cape side. These are things that we talk about, and I just don't know. I don't know what the end result is. I don't know how to fix it. Like, I couldn't tell you right now. But for me right now, it doesn't seem like weekly episodic television is the way to go for wrestling. But that could change in a couple of years. Maybe there'll be a boom. Maybe NXT and Dynamite being on separate shows, separate days, leads to a little bit of a boom period. That might be good. Maybe SmackDown, maybe NXT will get a consistent 850, 900, close to 1 million viewers. Same for Dynamite. on Wednesday. That could be great. That could actually be a positive trend for wrestling. And really, just like, Raw shouldn't be 3 hours. It really shouldn't be 3 hours. It's too bad to be 3 hours. Really. Come on. You know, just cut it down. Just put it 2 hours again. Come on. There's no reason for it anymore. WWE got two $1 billion contracts this year, just one calendar year since the pandemic. Two of them. Well, wait. No, I don't think. Well, no, the Fox deal were $1 billion, and then that was before the pandemic. But they did this Peacock thing. It's like, you have money, people. You can cut the hour off of Raw. It's okay. And I know that also helps USA Network and stuff, but it's like, come on, don't you see that this show sucks and it shouldn't be 3 hours? So just help us out a little bit, please. It would be really, really helpful. I know it's all about money, but Jesus Christ, just like, come on. Raw doesn't need to be 3 hours anymore. It really doesn't. So yeah, that's it. Really, I got my little almost 30-minute rant in on wrestling viewership, and I will probably be back next week because it's WrestleMania week, and I just want to, I think, kind of get back in the groove of this again. We'll see. I got the COVID vaccine 2 Mondays ago. First vaccine shot. That was no symptoms, thankfully. April 19th, Monday, April 19th is my second one. Hopefully everything goes well there. And we'll see. We'll see what happens with all that. I'm not a beach goer. I was telling somebody I'm not a beach goer, but this year I might, if everybody really gets the vaccines and we're able to kind of safely venture out again, I might go to the beach a couple of times. Do some traveling that I haven't done before. It would be nice. Pandemic, man, it's been hell. Really has been. It's been real hell. We've lost people, and I feel really awful about that. Really do. But I hope that you're doing okay, and thank you for watching. Hit the like button, hit subscribe. Next week, probably get into what's happening on Raw and SmackDown leading into WrestleMania. Some of it is good. A lot of it isn't. That's the unfortunate thing. And yeah. So thank you very much for watching. Go follow Fightful Twitch, Fightful Gaming, and check them out. Jeremy and Joe are great guys. Also, I did do a throwback Wicked Crazy Pinfall show 2 weeks ago, I think it was. on Tuesday, and that was really fun. I really enjoyed that, and I thank Throwback very much for having me on. We also did an audio podcast together, which was really fun. And you know, I love uh, the friends that I've made thanks to wrestling. Uh, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in right now without wrestling. I don't know what my life would be like, honestly. So you saw me, you know, really crapping on a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, I love wrestling, and I love you guys. I love my friends that I've made because of this. Thank you so much. And until next time, bye for now.